Hello, everyone. Pardon me. It's one of those moments I don't know if I'm actually live on the screen yet, or there I go. I'm getting ready to be live. Okay, how's everybody doing today? It's so nice to get here and see loads of people here already, and actually comments and questions in the chat window already. So today I thought we would talk about what your favorite nakshatra is and why. So I'm going to tell you what your favorite nakshatra is. No, I'm only kidding. You tell me what your favorite nakshatra is and tell me why that's your favorite nakshatra if you want to. Other than that, I'll probably talk about the nakshatra a little bit as well. So, we'll get ready to kind of get into things. Wow, now there's 15 people here. It jumped phenomenally from 7 to 15. So, hello to everybody who's watching. Hey, before we get going, today we're going to talk about nakshatras here, but I am also doing a weekly webinar series on each individual nakshatra, one a week, called the Esoteric and Therapeutic Secrets of the Nakshatras. If you're interested in that course, it is $40 per class. It's on Friday evenings from 9 to 10 p.m. London time. And you can find information on that course here. In addition to that, for those of you who have wanted to schedule with me, but have perhaps been financially restrained from doing so for one reason or another, I am offering a 10% discount on all astrological services, including coaching packages, relationship consultations. Every single astrological service is discounted by 10% between today, I should say, and tomorrow at 10:30 p.m. London time. The link to that is also here as well. And if you want that discount, the way to take advantage of that discount is to enter the code INSTA, which I've also typed in the window on the services page when you go to schedule your consultation. So I see a few of you have kind of put up a lot of your nakshatras here. And somebody has actually just commented about one of the nakshatras they spoke about. Radhika was saying that she really likes Moola nakshatra and that no one loves Moola nakshatra. I actually think Moola nakshatra is pretty good. Some interesting things that happen with planets that are in Moola nakshatra, then things tend to kind of unravel. As you may know, things tend to fall apart. And we have a choice with that particular energy, which is we can either avoid it, okay, and try to push hard and create resistance against that thing that's unraveling, or we can look at it unraveling and go, okay, well, I'm just going to help it to unravel, right? And if you do that, then you're really on a certain level cooperating with the energy of that nakshatra. I thought I'd share something about a lot of these nakshatras for you, and this is from a translation of Taittiriya Brahmana. And it has, first of all, I should tell you what that is. You may know that is information on the nakshatras just briefly in the Rig Veda, but really it just names the nakshatras by the deities connected to them. The Taittiriya Brahmana, which is part of the Krishna Yajurveda, actually contains nakshatra descriptions in a roundabout way. It has information on the nakshatras. And the way that it explains each nakshatra is it gives a something that's either for a particular deity or of a particular deity. That's one component of it. And another element will say from above. Now, from above relates to the Para-Atman, or the Supreme Soul, or what is coming from the heavens. You can look at it in a symbolic manner that way. And it has an element that says from below, and that relates to the Jivatman, us normal mortals here on Earth, and what we're meant to do with that energy. Okay, so for Moola Nakshatra, that particular text is the uprootings for Niriti, who is the one without motion, is fracturing from above and breaking into pieces from below. And so on a certain level, that's saying we come up against resistance, that resistance uproots us and it breaks something apart. But it's breaking something apart so that we can digest it. We can take it into little bite-sized pieces and actually make something out of it rather than avoiding the level of work that we really need to do. And with Moola Nakshatra, let's read some other things about it. Moola Nakshatra is a Dhatu Nakshatra. And with all the Dhatu Nakshatras, there's this desire to support something, okay, and equally be supported in supporting that something. And quite often with Moola Nakshatra, it can feel like we're not being supported. And then we behave in a Rakshasa type manner, which is a radical type manner, in order to push up against the resistance rather than face the fact that something is falling apart. We instead decide that, well, I'm going to rebel and I'm not going to let that happen. But we can just as easily choose to apply that energy in a very unorthodox manner towards creating change in alignment with the direction that things are taken already. So you see, we always have a choice with the nakshatras. And the nakshatras are always describing a way that we're meant to grow the energy of that planet. They're bringing us a karmic lesson that we're meant to integrate in order to interact with that planet. So for instance, if your Venus is in Moola Nakshatra, when relationships fall apart, you're meant to work in harmony with that, help the process along rather than resist that process, right? Rather than just going, well, I know best, I'm just going to focus on keeping this together. If your job's falling apart, the same thing. It's cooperating with the energies that are there, okay? Somebody saying, not sure what this channel is talking about. Well, we're talking briefly about nakshatras. Vedic is not always necessarily sidereal, just so everybody knows. There's also tropical Vedic and also sidereal Vedic, okay? So we're going to talk about the nakshatras today. So by the way, everybody's typing a lot of things into the chat window already. As I can see, wow, there are so many more of you here today. I really must get on to like kind of trying to plan these things more in advance because so many more people show up when I do. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on here. Porva Ashada Nakshatra. Okay. Porva Ashada Nakshatra, sometimes the best way to describe these nakshatras is to give you the text from Taittiriya Brahmana because it's so exceptionally profound, this particular text, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. So for Porva Ashada Nakshatra, the text is the earlier victories of Appa, which means the waters. The earlier victories of the waters are vigor from above and a battle from below. So Moola and Porva Ashada Nakshatra, they seem to have a similar energy tone because one follows on from the other. Let's explain that process just a little bit, okay? So Moola Nakshatra is actually the first of the Sattvic foundation nakshatras, okay? Sattvic means balanced, moving towards something more inspiring, equally trying to focus on spiritual balance, trying to focus on liberating oneself. Those are all Sattvic related things. Moola Nakshatra brings that particular process of awareness and awakening today. I'm reading somebody's thing and I said today, brings that process of awakening and awareness into being by first providing us with resistance, that when we push up against that resistance, it's revealed to us that no, it's not going to work in that direction. And we have to open up to a completely different direction and be aware of what it is that we actually need to do. Pardon me. So Porva Ashada Nakshatra is the second of the Sattvic founded nakshatras. And with Porva Ashada Nakshatra, we can be invigorated and purified by what it is that we're learning, what it is that we're working with. And we can go, okay, now I know what I need to do. So I'm going to be very strong and firm about moving in that particular direction, because also Porva Ashada Nakshatra is a cruel and violent nakshatra, which doesn't mean if you have a planet in Porva Ashada Nakshatra that you're going to be cruel and violent. But if you have a lot of anger issues and you do have a planet in Porva Ashada Nakshatra, that might be one explanation as to why. Porva Ashada Nakshatra is also a plant nakshatra. Plant nakshatras want to nourish other people, nourish certain things in their life, nurture things to bring them into potential, but equally they want to be nourished, and they will adapt to the situation until they find the level of nourishment that they want. And with Porva Ashada being a cruel and violent one that does it, it's going to be really firm in its adaptation. It's going to go, no, this is the right way for me, right? But sometimes that's preceded, especially if there's a weak Venus in the chart, by putting up a facade or by working within a pretense, by not being true to oneself. And then one's life begins to kind of become a struggle, and you feel like, there's a lot of imbalance and difficulty, and you're really dealing with a lot of resistance until and unless you just go, you know what? I'm just going to be true to myself and really be real and be authentic with this and become invigorated by that rather than letting myself get involved in all this pettiness, which isn't really serving me. So instead, I'm going to take this energy that I learned from Moola Nakshatra and recognize, you know what? I don't need to struggle anymore. I can have things work out better earlier if instead I just decide that I'm going to cooperate with myself rather than not be true to myself and rather than be like inauthentic on a certain level. Okay. Pardon me, everybody. I need to take a drink. My throat's a little bit raspy today. Okay. So again, everybody, just a general reminder for those of you who have maybe wanted to schedule a consultation with me before, but for one reason or another, it has been financially restricted for you to do so. I am offering a 10% discount on all astrological services. If you go to the link I'm typing into the window now and enter the discount code INSTA, because this was from my Instagram page also, and you can get a discount, 10% discount on all astrological services between now and 10:30 p.m. tomorrow night, the 13th of March. Okay. Okay, somebody's asking a question, which I don't want to go too deeply into this, and I get asked this question often, and I'm not saying that it's a bad question or a wrong question. It's actually a very good question, which is people often ask which nakshatra is most significant, the moon or the ascendant. It's not that one takes predominance over the other necessarily. They each serve a particular purpose for a particular reason. So it's important to understand each and every nakshatra on the level of what it's about and what is placed in it. So if your Jupiter's placed in it, well, whatever Jupiter rules is going to grow in that particular manner, in a manner associated with the nakshatra, right? So it's not that one is more important to another than another. It's not that one nakshatra is more important than another. They're all important, okay? So let's see what else we've got here. Somebody was asking that I talk about Ashlea Nakshatra. Before I do that, let me kind of go into an explanation of nakshatras in general. Nakshatras have so many different facets that are connected to them, which is the reason why they're usually one of the most confusing things for people to work with in the horoscope. There are so many different facets of them to understand. And equally, when you have a planet in a nakshatra, because there's so many different facets of that nakshatra, it's difficult to know, well, which facet of that nakshatra is going to be brought to the surface, right? So pardon me, nakshatras have a caste that's associated with them. Some nakshatras are, for instance, kshatriya caste, which is all about being noble. Kshatriya nakshatras can have pride related issues, right? That's a problem for them. But they're also very dignified. So if you have a kshatriya planet like Mars or the sun in a kshatriya nakshatra, that facet is going to become more dominant. But what I really wanted to talk to everybody about was the fact that each specific nakshatra is associated with a kingdom. Now, we already spoke about the plant kingdom, but let's touch on each of these briefly again because it's really vital to understand. Moola Nakshatras, which are the plant Nakshatras, not to be confused with Moola Nakshatra itself. Moola Nakshatras are plant-oriented Nakshatras. So what do plants do? Well, we've got some flowers behind me. All right, so imagine those flowers being outside where they're growing towards the sunlight, right? And imagine there's a lamp outside right next to those flowers. Imagine a cloud goes over the sun. Those flowers are going to stop growing towards the sun and start growing towards the light because they're going to adapt and go to where the nourishment is, right? And it's good to be adaptable, and that's a strength of Moola Nakshatras, not Moola Nakshatra itself, but Moola plant Nakshatras, okay? Is that they can adapt to the most nourishing situation for them or help others to adapt for nourishing situations for themselves. But sometimes there can be a tendency to be too adaptive. And if you're too adaptive to a situation, rather than going, for instance, using that analogy we were talking about, rather than growing towards that lamp, if those flowers would just wait a little bit, then the sun would come back out again. So sometimes it's about being patient. Similarly, flowers, other plants tend to dig in their roots to draw nourishment from the soil. And if there's no water or the soil is dry or less nutrients, then they'll begin to extend their roots in other directions rather than just digging their roots more deeply. So sometimes it's equally about learning how to be stronger, right? And how to be patient. That's also something that Moola Nakshatras are needing to integrate in addition to working with the skill that they already have, which is being adaptive. So Dhatu Nakshatras, which are the mineral Nakshatras. Mineral Nakshatras are strong. They're solid when the planet that's in them is solid, and when the planet that's connected to the nakshatra is also solid, meaning what people would ordinarily call the planetary ruler, but I don't like that term because basically that's just there because of Vimshotri Dasha. Or with the planetary ruler connected with the nakshatra is also strong, then Dhatu Nakshatras can be very solid. And they can be a source of support for other people as well. When they're weak, there can be the desire for other people to support them or feeling like they're not getting the support that they need. So the lesson with Dhatu Nakshatras is about self-support. Then you have the Jiva Nakshatras. Jiva Nakshatras relate to the animal kingdom, where the law of the jungle is eat or be eaten, dominate or submit, lead or follow, and that's just generally how it works. So there are generally some leadership issues in association with the Jiva Nakshatras. They're needing to learn when to lead and when to follow in association with each particular situation. So I wanted to go into that first before we went into more individual nakshatras, just so you had a general understanding. So somebody's asking, does the moon in Ashwini nakshatra enhance healing abilities? It can, but you need to have other factors in the horoscope pointing in the same direction. Okay, so it's a lot about so many things coming together to create the same thing. Okay, so somebody was asking about Ashlea Nakshatra. Again, with each of these, I'm going to read to you some of the texts from Taittiriya Brahmana because it's really so very profound, right? The embraces of Sarpa. Sarpa are the serpents. So the embraces of the serpent are approaching indirectly from above. Let's analyze that statement, right? So that which we are being pulled towards, because the serpents can tend to hypnotize their prey. Cobras do that with their dance. They'll hypnotize their prey, right? So they entrance us, right? If it's a snake that kills by wrapping itself around you, it's going to embrace you, right? But embrace of a serpent is not always bad. But the meaning here is that serpents can either bring wisdom, as they're also associated with the shedding of the skin, or they can bring poison, or they can bring death. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword in that particular approach. So sometimes we get pulled in and fascinated by things that could be beneficial for us, but equally may not. And it's hard to determine which of those things is actually happening. So the serpents are approaching indirectly. So they'll be here and then they'll be over here, and it'll confuse us and it'll pull us in and cause us to want to sort things out. And so we kind of go into it and explore here and then go in and explore somewhere else and kind of move around in association with it, right? And become entranced in whatever planet might be placed in that nakshatra. It's also a sharp and harsh nakshatra, which means it's going to be intense. Things that it's into, it's going to be really into. And if you disrupt and disturb its capacity to do that, it's not going to like it. It's also an animal nakshatra, which means it's going to be assertive in terms of the things that it's focusing on in a really sharp and harsh manner. Okay. And either that or it's going to be directly the opposite, which is completely submissive in association with the things that it's associated with. One of the things that tends to be connected with Ashlea Nakshatra, though, is people quite often give it a bad reputation. And they say, oh, well, people who have something in that nakshatra are all rude, and that's not necessarily the case. They're truthful. It is a sattvic nakshatra. Okay, so it's wanting to bring balance, but it's going to destroy anything that's in the way of attaining that balance because it wants to get to the heart of something. Okay. All right. So let's see what else we've got here. So just a reminder, if you're enjoying this particular discussion, I am doing a few different courses. One is an ongoing series where you can register for individual classes on the nakshatras. This coming Friday, it's Barani Nakshatra. It's called The Esoteric and Therapeutic Secrets of the Nakshatras. It's $40 per class. You can register for each class individually at the link I just typed into the window. I'm also doing a full length, not full link, medical astrology webinar course that starts on the 23rd of March, which is a Saturday evening. You can register by trimester or in full at the link which I'm going to type here, and a 10% discount on all astrological services in effect between now and tomorrow night at 10:30 p.m. London time. If you go to this link and enter the discount code INSTA when you schedule your consultation. And if you would like to register for the course and are interested in a discount, you can talk to me directly. Okay. Let's see what else we've got going on here. All right. So remember, so we said general nakshatra talk, but we want to talk about people's favorite nakshatras. Okay. Rather than talking about if I have this planet here and that planet here, what's going to happen. That's not the idea or the reason that we're here today, just so everybody knows briefly. Okay. Porva Badra Nakshatra. Okay, so another thing that we're going to do on this nakshatra course is to talk about the journey of the soul through the nakshatras and what each of those is about. And we will talk about Barani. You have to remind me, type it into the window here again. And I'm first of all going to respond about Porva Badra Nakshatra. Okay. Porva Badra Nakshatra is connected to Aja Ekapada. Aja Ekapada is a goat-footed form of Shiva. And it's interesting because if you understand the symbolism of a goat, it'll make a lot of sense. So let's explain that. Okay. Goats will eat anything, as everybody probably knows, right? So they can survive off of almost anything, but they also give milk, which is highly nourishing. So they can nourish, right? And don't confuse this with the Moola Nakshatra, because as we'll see here in a moment, we'll understand that Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra is not a Moola Nakshatra. So we don't want to confuse it with that particular concept because it's a completely different thing that we're talking about with that. As a matter of fact, Porva Bhadrapada is a Dhatu Nakshatra. But the idea here is needing very little but giving a lot. There's also a quality of inspiration connected to Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra to elevate things, right? So imagine the whole concept of giving a lot and needing very little. Um, Aja Ekapada, which is connected to Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, relates to the concept of God in potential. Not quite fully come into form, but bridging the realm between completely ethereal and spiritual. If we have to kind of give definition to things, which when we speak in these terms, it's very hard already and it becomes very, very esoteric, but completely ethereal and spiritual, and the material plane. So it can bring things up to the higher level and it can also transmit things down to the lower level. So it's all about inspiration. That's why it has a quality of elevation that's associated with it. It's a sattvic nakshatra that's also filled with a lot of desire connected to it because it's sattvic, and it's rajasic. It's a nakshatra that's about creating something that's moving towards a particular goal. And there's a great level of restlessness towards moving towards that particular goal. And I'll read to you a little bit about Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, again from the text Tayatiriya Brahmana. Let me find the correct page though. Okay, so here is the definition of each word, and please pardon my Sanskrit pronunciation, which I will be the first to say is not that great. Ajasya, which means of the unborn, of the goat. Ekapadaha, 1 foot, one in the same place. Purve, at the early, previous. Proshtapada, the feet of a stool. Vaishvanaram, relating or common to all humans. Padastat, from above. Vaishvavashavam, the collective vasus or gods. Avastat, from below. So 1 foot at the earlier feet of the stool. We need to understand what this stool is about. And this text continues over with Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. The stool is the final resting place before our liberation. So 1 foot at the earlier feet of the stool, at the very bottom of the stool of Aja, or God in potential, is common to all humans. Each human has 1 foot at the bottom of that stool moving towards liberation. Okay, so 1 foot at the earlier feet of the stool of Aja is common to all humans from above, and below we're all the collective gods, right? So what the nakshatras actually do, interestingly enough, is they grow the consciousness of whatever is placed in them in a particular manner that is very deeply associated with this text that I'm presently reading you from, Tayatiriya Brahmana. It kind of defines that particular energy. So if you think of all of that, you can understand, right, well, if I'm having more of the difficult polarity of this nakshatra, I need to focus on the higher polarity. So let's take Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, for instance. There can be the tendency towards frustration or anger even with Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, especially if there's a weak Jupiter in the chart, because the individual's wanting to expand, they're wanting to elevate things, but there's some frustration in association with their capacity to do so. And so it becomes somewhat disruptive in that particular capacity. So when there is, and equally, Porva Bhadrapada Nakshatra, because it's a Brahman Nakshatra, can be very chaste towards their cause. So then when things don't work out on the level that they would like for them to, frustration ensues. And if that frustration is directed at a person, it's a second. We're all divine here, right? And I need to recognize that. If it's related to a situation, it's about recognizing, well, even though things are not working out along the lines that I would like for them to, this is the nature of the situation, right? And I need to elevate my consciousness above the frustration that I'm suffering. It doesn't mean that I have to stop working towards that particular goal, but it means that I need to accept that things may not work out in the manner that I would like for them to. Okay, let's see if we've got somebody's asking what's my favorite. I have different favorites dependent upon what week it is. Okay. This week, I'm really interested in Dhanishta Nakshatra. I really like Dhanishta Nakshatra this week. Okay. So just a reminder, 10% off all astrological consultations. If you want to schedule with me, you can do so between now and tomorrow, the 13th of March at 10:30 p.m. at the link that I'm going to put in the window now. And if you use the discount code INSTA, that will give you your 10% discount if you go to that particular place. And yes, I hadn't forgotten about Barani Nakshatra. Okay, so thank you for being constant. We're going to go into that. Here's an interesting thought, right? Pardon me. Barani Nakshatra and Porva Falguni Nakshatra and Porva Ashada Nakshatra are all nakshatras. You see me going like this because I keep wanting to put my arm down on my desk, but when I do that, my camera moves, right? So I have to keep catching myself. So Barani, Porva Ashada, and Porva Falguni are all Venus-related nakshatras. And so you'd expect them to be all, like completely nice and sweet and gentle because it's related to Venus. Guess what? That's not the case. Every single one of them is in Ugra and a Krura nakshatra, which is a cruel and a violent nakshatra. So they're very firm in their resolve towards things. So let's talk a little bit about Barani nakshatra, right? Let's understand it in context of Ashwini nakshatra. And I find that this is a really good way to explain it. And if you're interested in more, I'm going to do a full-length class on Barani nakshatra this Friday as part of that course I was telling you about. Okay? So Barani nakshatra comes after Ashwini, obviously. Ashwini is like the primal spark of creation. Understand the potential concept of God getting lonely, right? And God needing engagement. So God creates duality, right? And sends the soul into the world so that God can experience himself. That's how the Ashwins, or the divine physicians, are born. With Barani Nakshatra is the womb through which that primal spark can begin to come into form, right? But in order to really understand Barani Nakshatra, we need to understand a little bit about Yama, who is the deity that's connected to Barani Nakshatra. Now, most people understand Yama as being connected to death, being the god of death, but Yama's function is so much deeper than that. Sure, he takes life away from the individual, but he also does something else. He's also known as Dharma Raja, which means the king of Dharma. And so one of his purposes is to usher souls to the ancestral realm. Now, anytime you hear that concept of ancestors or the ancestral realm in association with Vedic mythology, it can also have the symbolism of reflecting upon the past or reflecting upon our past lives. So Yama carries us into the ancestral realm so we can reflect on the life that we've just gone through, okay? And understand where we developed things well and where perhaps we're in need of greater development. And in those areas where we have a need for greater development, Yama is kind enough to give us another soul so that we can come into being and experience it all again, right? Yama was the first entity to experience death. So that's how he became the soul of death. But he has very deep connections to Brahma, which is also about creating things too. So with each death comes a new creation. So in short, what Barani Nakshatra is about is restraint, because Yama also means restraining oneself, right? So if you have a spark coming into creation, right, that spark is pure potential. It needs some sort of restraint applied to it so that it can become a form. Barani Nakshatra is also associated with the birth canal, so it relates to giving birth to things as well. And as we all know, the birth-related process is one that's associated with pain and equally associated with labor. And anyone who has ever experienced childbirth, and I can't speak personally, but but women who've experienced childbirth, you understand that that sometimes feels like a cruel and a very intense experience that you're going through, but it creates something else, and that's the connection with this particular nakshatra. So let's also read about the text from Taittiriya Brahmana that's connected to this particular nakshatra, because it will give us some more clues. In Taittiriya Brahmana, this particular nakshatra is called Barani. Okay, so Yamasha, which means of Yama, of the restrainer, Barani, bearing or carrying away, Karshantaha, drawing away, Parastat, from above, Vahantaha, carrying away, Avastat, from below. So translated loosely, this means the bearing away of Yama, the restrainer, is drawing away from above. So it's like the heavens give birth to us, and then they go, okay, well, I'm going to back off a little bit to give you your independence, right? But what have you learned by being one with me? What can you carry away forward, carrying away from below? What can you carry away from the situation? What have you learned from your previous experience, right? What are you now needing to nurture in your life, foster in your life, so that you can grow something that's better and in deeper alignment with what your soul needs to experience? How strong and how firm will you be in going through that? Yes, upon occasion, with planets placed in Barani Nakshatra, it can feel like one is dealing with a lot of difficulty. But if you look at that difficulty, it's offering you a lesson, and it's giving you the capacity to create something new. And that's something that generally tends to happen in association with Barani Nakshatra. So again, I'm going to do a full-length course on all of these. I'm here for like another 10 minutes, and then I'm going to likely have to go due to other work commitments that I have. But we can probably handle one or two more. Let me see some other questions that might be here in the chat window. And thank you all for putting such wonderful questions in the chat window here. Pardon me for sniffling, just getting over a cold. Does each nakshatra relate to specific body parts? Yes, it does. Actually, that's something that we're going to learn on the medical astrology webinar course, which starts on the 23rd of March, a full-length course that runs from the 23rd of March all the way into the new year 2020. We're going to learn about the planetary associations with anatomy, the Rashi associations with anatomy, the Nakshatra associations with anatomy, how to judge wellness in the horoscope through all these things. And so on that, we'll learn about Nakshatra associations with the body parts. Varaha Mahira wrote a lot about that. Those are the most reliable associations. But in addition to that, there are some decent ones from Brihat Parashara Horus Shastra that I have found applicable upon occasion. So I usually take the connection that is associated with both of those and look to see if there's something that is relevant to the situation. So for instance, the body part that's connected to Barani Nakshatra is the head. Right. And that's interesting because a lot of times it's the head that's the first thing that crowns, or when the head crowns the birth canal, that's when birth is considered as as being the first process of birth, I should say. That's when, if you're coming out tail first, well, then the head will come out last. That'll complete the process. If the head comes out first, then the head is becoming aware of it. So whenever the head comes out, the head's becoming aware of being in the physical realm. And then it's when that first breath is taken that more prana comes into the body and the new life starts. And so the head is a very apropos body part to be connected to Barani Nakshatra. Okay. So let's see what else we've got. But yeah, I was going to say, if you're interested in that medical astrology webinar course, you can register by trimester. First trimester obviously starts the 23rd of March. Second trimester would be middle of June. Third trimester is in September. You can do so at the link I'm going to give you next. And if you're interested in a discount on that course, just message me through the website, and I'd be happy to offer that in order to accommodate your learning potential. Okay, let's see what else we've got. Does moon give his energy to the nakshatra, or the nakshatra gives the energy to the moon? A little bit of both, but it's not just the moon nakshatra that's important. All nakshatras are important, and all nakshatras have a connection to the moon. What is the moon? The moon is manas, our sensory mind. It's how we perceive things. It's our subjective reality of consciousness itself. So the moon, if you understand, also affects the tides of the ocean. It makes the tides raise up and swell and also calm down. And similarly, that's how our mind goes through processes too. We wax and we wane inside of ourselves. We pay attention to the lessons we're meant to integrate, and sometimes we completely ignore them. Right. And so, with the nakshatras being connected to the moon, they relate to those lessons that we deeply need to integrate with each of those planets. That's why I was doing that course on the nakshatras, because it helps you to understand those things. Okay, so everybody, I'm going to need to go. I'm running out of voice for the day. So again, one last thing. If you want to book a consultation with me, everything from the one question service all the way up to the 6-month coaching package, all of those are available between now and tomorrow night, 13th of March at 10:30 p.m. at the link which I'm putting in the window now. Ends in AD, and you have to enter the discount code INSTA in order to get the 10% discount. Also, if you're interested in the Esoteric Secrets of the Nakshatras course, that course, the next class is this Friday, 9 to 10 p.m. We'll be talking about Barani Nakshatra. You can take the class for $40. Here's the link to that. And my medical astrology webinar course, just click some of the links, you'll find out what they take you to. Okay, so the medical astrology webinar course is at this link. And there's also a concrete prediction course, but you can find it once you're on the site. But most important one, if you're looking to schedule an astrological service for me, that discount is 10%. I'll put that in the window last once again, even though I already did it. And the discount code is INSTA. And so I do hope to talk to you all soon, or hope equally that some of you join me on the course, or if you want to schedule a consultation with me, please feel free to do so. And until next time, I do hope that you all will take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.